Your microphone's on and pull them forward. And if you obviously with a mask, please try to speak loudly into the microphone. I'd like to call the March 14th, 2022 meeting of the Town of Niskuna Planning Board and Zoning Commission to order. Mr. Henry, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Laflamme.
Here.
Mr. Screbutennis is excused and absent. Mr. Khan.
Here.
Mr. McPartland.
Here.
Mr. Darpino.
Here.
Ms. Shenfield.
Here.
Ms. Gold.
Present.
Chairman Walsh.
Here. Okay, we have the approval of the minutes from the February 28th, 2022 meeting. Can I have a motion to approve those minutes? Motion made by Mr. Khan. Do I have a second?
Second.
And seconded by Mr. McPartland. And I know we could have some discussion, or I do have a couple changes. I don't know if anybody else has anything.
I do.
The attendance.
You want to go first?
Yeah, okay, what I've got is the roll call. It says Mr. Screbutennis and Mr. McPartland are absent excused. That should state that all attendees were, or all board members were present at the meeting. That looks like from the previous meeting. And also the town attorney, Ms. Finnan, says virtual, and she was here in person. What do you have, Leslie?
Okay, on page 4 under commission business,
You have a line number, please?
138.
138. Okay. So where it says Ms. Gold asked if it could be noted.
Yeah, that's not exactly what I said. I noted that there seemed to be a missing document, and Ms. Robertson agreed there was. And I raised a procedural question, whether we should continue with notes to the file, or perhaps do amended resolutions or addenda to the resolutions to ensure that the documents could be filed in more than one place. And I expected no answer that night, and I noted that. But at some point, I would like an answer, and I think it's something that really the planning department and the town attorney need to discuss, because it does mean more work for the attorney's office, which is why we started the file notes in the first place. On the other hand, we are generating fewer resolutions than we used to, because this town is so largely built out. There just isn't the same volume.
All right,
of
is there
work.
something, words that you want to add to this minutes, or do you want to just have that captured later on? We can talk about that in commission business again and
Well,
capture it again?
I'd like the minutes amended to reflect that, because I think it's an important issue.
Okay,
You know, I'm retired from the state. I was a bureaucrat, and my experience has been missing documents tend to come back and bite you in the backside.
I don't think,
And I worry about such.
yeah, and I don't think anybody has a problem with amending the minutes, but if you could summarize, what you'd like, and we'll make sure it gets in there. If
I
you
just
wrote-
raised the procedural question of whether we should continue with the notes to the file, or change the process to do amended resolutions or addenda to the resolutions. That pretty much covers it.
Okay,
Thank you.
Yep, we can make that amendment.
do you have that, Laura?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Gold. Does anybody else have any comments or changes to the minutes? Okay, so we have just attendance to be cleaned up and the comments from Ms. Gold. So let's just say, is everybody okay with those changes to the minutes? Signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, hearing none opposed, we have modified minutes. All those, let's have a motion, I'll make I'm sorry, I should have made a motion that we modify the minutes as suggested, but I think everybody's okay with that. All right, so, and we already have a motion on the minutes in a second. So all those in favor of approving the minutes as modified, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the minutes are approved as modified by those suggestions. Thank you, everyone. Okay, we have no public hearings, so we'll move right to privilege of the floor. Anyone wishing to be heard regarding any planning and zoning matters in the town of Niskuna, please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. Looks like we have nobody present here tonight to speak during privilege of the floor. Laura, do we have any communications or anybody online that would like to speak?
I don't have anything electronically tonight.
Okay, and I don't see anybody that has logged in. So we'll close privilege of the floor. We have no unfinished business, so we'll move right to new business. How's that for moving right along tonight? Under new business, we have a recommendation to ZBA for One Research Circle, a recommendation to Zoning Board of Appeals for the construction of a new 16,000 square foot building requiring an area variance for the height of the building. And we're going to take action on that tonight. We do have Mr. Whalen representing GE here tonight, and we also got some late information, some additional visuals to help us in our recommendation. So I'm going to ask Mr. Whalen to come to the microphone, state your name for the record, and maybe you can tell us what you sent over so the board can take a look at it.
Sure.
Chairman
Corey
Walsh, I'd
Whalen.
like to recuse myself from this item.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Khan. Mr. Khan's recusing himself, and Ms. Gold, of course, is sitting in tonight because we were shorthanded, so we should be okay with coverage. Okay.
Corey Whalen. The first page is a general site overview of,
Microphone on. Is it glowing green light?
yes.
Okay.
So the first page is just a general site overview of the research center. And the red rectangle is where we are proposing to put the building on our site. The second page shows the number of feet off the road that the building will be once constructed. So it's right around 710 feet off the road, off River Road, and then roughly 935 feet from the bike path. Another thing shown on this is the building was built in 1983, K West, is 65 and a half feet tall. The new building is going to be 55 feet tall, so it's slightly shorter than the current building that sits there as a reference point for you guys. The third page, if you were to travel west from Research Circle down River Road, immediately after you exit the circle, this is the view towards where we propose to build the building. Spring, summertime, you can't see the building or where we would be building it from there because of all the trees between there, the path. Fourth page is our westernmost gate where our employees enter. So there is one building on site that you can see from that entrance. This proposed building would be obstructed by the trees right there at the entrance. But if you travel probably 75 feet more west, you would be able to see the outline of the building through the trees. You could make it out, but you won't be able to see the full building. The next picture is from the soccer fields, which are west of the site. Currently you can see the top of our K West building, the air handling equipment in the wintertime without foliage. From here during the summer and springtime and fall, you wouldn't be able to see the building at all. You probably won't be able to see the new building from here based on the 10 feet shorter, and there's no air handling equipment that's going on top of the new building. It's going to have a peaked roof, so we won't have any equipment like currently sits on our K West building.
And I spoke to you earlier, when you pull in along the K West access road, if you're looking through that parking lot, in the back of the parking lot, there's like a tan,
Yeah.
I guess a prefab building or steel
Yeah.
building.
Very similar to
Yeah, is that, do you have to know, I'm going to put you on the spot, the height of that building?
I do not.
Or approximately?
I think it's probably close to 50 feet tall. Inside, there is an overhead crane similar to what would be going inside this building.
Because we do have a list of the previous area variances for height summarized somewhere
It is
here.
a fairly new building, so if you have them,
Yeah, I don't see it listed. Well, it could be a variance for a 20-foot service building on 2017, Laura, no?
Chemistry building?
That's a
No.
small building attached to that building.
Yeah, coal, that's not the coal degasification, yeah.
Is it known as the chemistry building?
No, that's the one that you can see east of River Road behind the solar panels.
This
It
was
would have been built in the same,
time period.
from 2005 to 2022 though.
Okay. I did my best going through Laserfiche, but this wouldn't necessarily be
Yeah,
a
that's right.
comprehensive list.
It'd probably be nice to just get an approximation of that height, especially going in front of the ZBA
Okay.
on a Wednesday night, in case that question comes up, if they do a site visit, that they might pick
I
that up.
can pull the exact height. from
Yeah,
our
yeah,
ground
yeah,
intelligence.
just for information.
Okay.
Okay. All right, do you have anything else you'd like to add before I turn it over to Mr. Diapino?
No, sir.
Okay, but you might just stay there in case the board has
Yeah,
any
no
questions for
problem.
you. All right, David, anything that you got?
All right, thank you, Mr. Whalen, for getting us the information and some of the stuff that came in today. So a couple things, since our last meeting, the CAC has looked at this project. They did ask about a few things, one of which was parking. It sounds like from this, where the building is being placed, that is an existing parking location that's in poor shape. You're going to be, in theory, probably reducing some of the
Yeah.
impervious area, which is good. They asked about solar EV charging stations, things like that. Obviously, we know there's the large solar field that you have there, but EV charging stations are going to be incorporated as part of this this project. And then it sounds like there's not an impact on the sewage, all those systems that are there, because the net delta will be removal of buildings with the addition of a new building.
Correct.
I think and then the last item that the CAC spoke about was VOC emissions from the proposed building. The statement was no, but given the nature of what that is and the building that you described last time that was being replaced, it sounds like you're upgrading. Would it be
Yes.
the proper
Yeah.
term? Okay. And then the other thing, obviously, we just touched on was the number of variances that this specific property has had previously because of the nature of the work that you do there. So that's sort of a brief summary of where we are. One of the other things I just wanted to point out is, so as a board, we get these accelerated projects, and you know where I'm going with this. So what we want to do is we want to be able to have time with your building timeframe to thoroughly review things. And the nature of this board is that we may see a project several times before it goes to either a recommendation to the town board or zoning or other entities that may review it. Those other boards don't have that privilege all the time. So as thorough as you can make these submission packages for the deadlines, you know, we get these on Friday afternoon, right when the general public gets them, and then we meet here Monday night. So as things roll in sort of at the last minute, you want to give us ample time to make a site visit if necessary, meet with you or your team, have a phone discussion, and digest these things. So we just, you know, to your benefit, hopefully, when the recommendation goes, you're giving the best package that you can to the boards that you have to see. So I've just noticed that lately we're running on this thin line of accommodation versus following protocol. And, you know, we know that GE is a very, very, very important company in this town, and obviously we want to work with them. We just want to make sure that you're not shorthanded going into your next meeting where you get peppered with questions for people that aren't familiar with the site or seeing this for the first time. And then what happens is if that gets tabled, they meet once a month. You know, you don't have the opportunity to meet with us twice a month or in between meetings, things like that. So
Fair.
just wanted to put that on the table for you. I think what we got today, I had enough time to go through it. I was able to swing by right before the meeting to take a quick look. So that's my summary of where we are with this project.
All right. Thanks, David. I'd also like to add, isn't just GE. We run into this with other applicants also. So, you know, and, you know, it makes it tough on the planning department also. So we appreciate you getting some additional information for us tonight. And I'd also like the public to know that that information that Laura just displayed, and we were discussing the images, the distance to the road, they were just provided later this afternoon to the planning board. So they're not included in the package, but we all have a copy of them here. All right. So tonight, I think we're in pretty good shape to go forward with the recommendation. And what we need to make a recommendation on the zoning board of appeals on is from Niskayuna Zoning Code Section 220-17 height regulations. Regulations A states, no building or structure shall exceed a height of 35 feet above the average finished grade adjoining the building unless otherwise specified in this chapter. As proposed in the document package that we received, the new building has a maximum height of 55 feet above finished grade. Therefore, a variance of 20 feet of building height is required. Maximum of 35 feet is allowed, building's 55 feet. So we're looking at making a recommendation to the Zoning Board of Appeals on a 20-foot height variance. So we'll ask the questions and for our recommendation. And the first question is effect on the comprehensive plan. Mr. DiRapino?
No, there's no effect on the comprehensive plan.
Recommendation is no effect on the comprehensive plan. All those that concur that there's no effect on the comprehensive plan signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, anybody opposed or concerned with that?
Yeah, one.
You're opposed, so you're
I
voting.
think there is.
You think there's an effect on the comprehensive plan? Okay. And would you like to, anything expound upon that at all, or?
Just because it appears that it will be visible from off-site, not fully, but at least partially, and that it will be taller.
Okay. All right. So the vote is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 1. No effect on the comprehensive plan.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I just, would like to elaborate a little on my reasoning for voting that there is no effect on the comprehensive plan. I understand that this building may be partially visible from an area of River Road, but as far as I can tell, not visible from any existing residences. And furthermore, I'm also basing my vote on the fact that I understand the applicant is committed to working with the Architectural Review Board to ensure that the facade is sort of in keeping with the character of the other buildings on site.
Yep.
So I'd just like to have that noted.
No, great. Thank you, Mr. McPartlin.
But what's been presented so far is extremely unattractive.
All right. And yeah, I feel it's like in keeping with the comprehensive plan, and it doesn't impact anything that's within the comprehensive plan. Suitability of use in the area proposed, Mr. DiArpino.
Yes, I feel the project is suitable specifically for previous projects that have been built on this site with the variances that have been granted. Also, the net delta of the addition of a building and the removal of other buildings, I think, is a benefit. And also, they did address all 5 of the items that the CAC raised, incorporating some of those items into this project.
Okay, thank you, Dave. So the recommendation is suitable for the area proposed, suitable use. All those favor and concur with that recommendation signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is anyone opposed? Okay, no one's opposed, so it's unanimous. Is there any comments that would like to support that recommendation from the board? Besides Mr. DiArpino, I got a couple. I'll make sure things are covered. One thing I want to add, I guess, is that the dimensions of the building, the way the building is proposed, is that the shorter dimension faces the road versus the longer. So that's, a positive, obviously, the way that the parking lot and everything is. So that's important. Dave already mentioned that we have many other variances, so this is consistent with past actions of the board. And it is subject to not only to the ARB, but to site plan approval. So we'll be looking at this again, assuming that the Zoning Board of Appeals does grant the requested area variance. And the other thing that was important to me was tonight, this additional information showing that it's about 710 feet from River Road to the building, which is about 1/8 of a mile from the building. So yes, it's still, 55 feet, but it's not like right on top of the road. So that helps me. Anybody else have any comments on suitability? No? Okay. All right. And the following thing is a recommendation to the Zoning Board of Appeals, Mr. DiArpino.
Yes, recommend for the 20-foot height.
All right. Recommendation is that the area variance be approved. All those in favor of that signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Anyone opposed? Okay. Hearing none opposed, it's unanimous that recommendation is that the Zoning Board of Appeals grants the area variances. The area variance, excuse me, for 20 foot. All right. Any other questions for the applicant tonight on this subject? No? All right. It'll be a quick night tonight. I know you'll be in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals on Wednesday. Probably be good to have that approximate height of that building in the background in case the question comes up. And we'll see what happens, and we'll probably see you back.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. All right, thank you, Mr. DiArpino. And board. All right, so that's good. That's it for new business tonight. So we got discussion item 2635 Bolton Road. That's a Trinity Baptist Church. That's site plan application for clearing, construction of recreation fields. We do have a representative tonight, Mr. Noyes, is that correct? Representing the church. We got the agenda packet, which summarizes where we were in the past and where we are now. And so Mr. Noyes is available if we have any questions, but I think where we're at now is just basically waiting on approval of the impact of the 1/10 of an acre from the Army Corps of Engineers, right? Correct. And I don't know, what else we can talk about. Once that you do get approval, then we need to proceed with site plan. The site plan, I know you're proposing I don't know what you call it, a recreational building or a pavilion, right? A pavilion. And I noticed a pavilion with a road running to it, a gravel road. And I'm assuming that's in case you want to get some stuff out there, you have access to it. I think it was, 15-foot wide, you know? So it seems to be pretty straightforward. The location, I like the location of the pavilion. You know, obviously it's away from the residential portion. You know, there's some homes over at the back right-hand corner, but it seemed to look pretty good, the proposed location. And again, assuming that you get the approvals for the Army Corps, you're going to come back and we'll get into more details, at least whether or not we need any town designated engineer or whether there's an in-house review, you know, whether there's any lighting. You know, I think Laura mentioned the tree council may want to take a look to see if, you know, the location and whether there's any trees that would, of impact that would be lost due to, you know, the removal of the wetlands, you know, things along those lines. So there's items during site plan approval that we, you know, we still have to get through. But right now, we can, you know, in case we can't go anywhere until you hear from the Army Corps of Engineers, right?
The only lighting would be in the pavilion.
Right.
And maybe one light along the roadway there. There'll be no lighting out in the field area. It's not going to be developed into an athletic field per se.
Right.
It's just open field.
Yep, for functions out and back instead of front yard, pretty much, right? Right. The, as far as taking a look at the wetlands, maybe Laura, I don't know if you can pull up that one map. Let's see if I can find it on my, yeah, it's hard to see, of course. Over on the, Laura, on the left-hand side, you can see we're right to the, almost to the immediately left. I don't know if you can zoom in on that area. It looks like there is, I'm trying to, let me see if I can find it on my phone here. Get the right words.
Now, the pavilion may not be positioned exactly like that. That's just the way Tess drew it in.
Okay,
That's pretty much the location.
all right. And, but when you get to the point, if you get your approvals, you'll get more precise with the location. I guess that would be required, right, Laura?
If the planning board wanted the precise location, they definitely could. If they wanted to leave the general area up to building permit, you also could.
Okay,
That would be your discretion.
Slowly clockwise a little bit. So the southern line would be parallel with the property line.
okay.
But other than that, it'd be in the same place.
Yeah, what was the proposed size of the structure? I'm trying to find.
That was just a figure I just took off the top of my head.
Says-
It wouldn't be any bigger than that. It may even actually be smaller than that.
A 50 by 60 pavilion.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have a concern. Just, but right to the, going straight up from the pavilion, the proposed location, there's an area of, I'm trying to look at the legend here, of, to be, I guess, looks like the wetlands is open there, but it shows the wetlands beneath that image. You know what I'm trying to say? If you,
The different like pattern on that 1/10 of an acre is the wetlands that would be disturbed with this project and filled. And then the normal wetlands have the little grass pattern, and then that like checkered pattern
Right.
is our buffer.
right,
So it's showing them being disturbed even within our buffer because we require that, but they're actually only going to disturb the area that's outside of the buffer probably.
right, because there is no, those little grass things that signify the wetlands within that little rectangle, you know, if you zoom in there.
Yeah, that one, because these are the ones that are being proposed to be disturbed. The ones that have the squiggle line, the little snake line,
Yep,
those are the ones that would be filled as part of this project.
okay.
That's the reduction.
Laura, but I think what Kevin is saying is there's no little grass marks in the rectangular area.
Thank you, Clark. Yes, that's,
This area.
which delineates wetlands. So it looks like you're not disturbing wetlands there. It looks like it's just disturbing the buffer area.
We can have them update the map.
Yeah, I don't know if
with the
that's just I don't know if it's just a mistake, you know, when it was made or, you know,
What's your,
well, because it says, as Laura stated, you're disturbing wetlands there, but it doesn't show wetlands in there to be disturbed, whereas other locations it does, right?
Right, so it's labeled as acre reduction. It should probably still have the wetland symbol and then
There
maybe
you
a
go.
hash mark across it to show the reduction. Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying, yeah, that's what I was getting at.
Talk about that little peninsula that's.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the little, yeah, the little, no, not the peninsula, the little rectangle right to the left of it.
Well, isn't that part of that 25-foot buffer?
It's the buffer, but it's not wetlands, as it's shown here in this drawing, because there's no
I
little,
don't think, all around the perimeter, the dotted area is the wetlands. But then there's a 25-foot buffer all the way around, which is
right,
undisturbed. It's not wetland.
Right.
It's a buffer between the grassland
yeah.
and the wetland.
I think you understand, and Clark understands what my point was. But if the buffer area, in site plan, I don't know if we're going to end up recommending that it get delineated somehow, Laura, in some of the projects.
It's supposed to be some kind of a fence.
Yeah, we've done split rail fence.
Yeah, we usually do split rail.
And that's why I was kind of bringing this up. So if there's, split rail fence, looks like it could be extensive, obviously, just to prevent, encroachment into the buffer area. And that way, basically, everybody's aware of it and it just protects it. Seems like split rail is a reasonable, cost-effective way of doing that.
I think that's what it calls for.
Yeah, versus, yeah, and that's what we've done at other projects. But we'll address more of that based on you getting your approval from the Army Corps and then as we go forward. But, it seems like, it is going forward and I understand the need and it seems reasonable, everything that, that's proposed, How about the board? Any questions or comments on the proposal?
Well, assuming they get the Army Corps approval, I'm wondering if there's any other fencing planned,
Any other one?
any other fencing?
Just where it would be required around the buffer.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all I would expect,
Well, I'm
I'd
just
like
wondering where
to-
the deer are going to go, that's all.
Well, it's funny, I was going on River Road the other day, I actually saw a deer go under the guardrail, so it seemed like they get around pretty good.
amazing.
Where they can jump the fence.
Yep.
without trouble.
Probably split rail.
Yep. Comment, Mr.
Yeah, I have two questions. First is whether or not we need a grading plan. I see there's a note in this site plan that indicates there was some issue with a drainage pipe that connects one portion of wetlands to another. And so the plan is to fill that area in, but recognizing that there's a gradual southeast to northwest downhill slope of this land. I'm just curious what the plan is for the area that won't have a pavilion, but is intended to be used for recreation fields or what have you. And then my second question is about the existing impervious area on the site. There's quite a bit of it, and I understand it's likely necessary for certain days of the week. But has the applicant looked at reducing impervious area on the site?
Meaning the parking lot specifically?
Yeah, there's a lot of blacktop on the site. And I'm just curious if the blacktop is, all of that blacktop is used,
Oh, yes.
or if
You get pretty filled
on
up?
Sundays,
Yeah, it's used. Yep.
on Sundays.
Yeah, it's pretty much the only day that it's used,
Yeah.
to that extent. As far as the grading, we're not regrading anything. We're pretty much going with whatever the grade is.
Yeah, I think,
Again, we're not trying to level it off to create any kind of a playing field. It's just an open green area.
yeah, I think where there's some erosion, it stated that you just want to fill that in because there was a depression there where the pipe was, right? That's been
Well,
repaired.
it's settled, right.
Right,
The pipe
so
was replaced or
I think that was the only
repaired years
fill.
ago, and the ground just settled.
Right, that and any of the wetlands that you need to fill in order to,
Well, I can have the engineering department double check before the next meeting, but it depends on how much you're clearing because you would likely remove the stumps of the trees.
Yeah, but then we're just filling, so we're not regrading, we're not changing the grade per se, we're just filling in the holes.
Yeah, but it's considered to be disturbance, even if you're not changing the grade. And so it depends. I don't know, like if you know offhand what that total limit of clearing would be, but if it's over like a half acre to an acre, you'd have to do a soil erosion and sediment control plan. And if it's over an acre, even though you're clearing and keeping it the same, you would still need to do a SWIP just because you disturb that when you pull the stumps out of the ground and stuff like that.
Everything inside that buffer would be clear.
Okay, so you have my question I was gonna ask, right? It's hard for me to tell from any of the drawings exactly where the trees are gonna be cut, what's gonna be clear. So you're saying it's everything inside the buffer?
Well, you have the dotted area, which is the wetlands, then the
Right.
buffer. You have that on either side. Everything in between, it's open. It would be grassland,
But mostly wooded currently.
correct.
Yeah, I mean, it's wooded right now.
Yeah,
So
so
it's-
you're-
it sounds like you're looking at least a half acre of disturbance.
Whatever that is. I know originally it was, the whole parcel back there is 2 point something acres minus whatever the wetlands and the buffer consist of. I don't know what that
Yeah, so
that could be.
I'll double check that with you, but it's likely that you will need an engineered grading plan and a way to control any sediment coming off the site when you're doing that clearing.
Okay.
So the New York State rules are between a half acre and an acre. You have like a basic plan that you have to do, and then over an acre, you have a pretty heavy duty engineering plan that you have to do, just for stumping. So I'll have that. I'll take a look at that area if I can figure
Would
it
the
out.
Army Corps have asked for a clearing plan too, as part of your application?
No, because the Army Corps really just is dealing with fill.
Okay.
The clearing is a planning board issue.
Do you have an engineering firm working with you now on this, or the surveyor, or,
Tess works with Gilbert.
so he could, he has all dimensions, so he could take a look at the area, and come up with a number to support what Laura's,
Yeah, so
Cliff Van Gelder's the engineer.
yeah.
add the limits of clearing to the plan and figure out what that acreage is.
And whether that trips any other,
Stormwater.
yeah. Right. But, yeah,
I just, the site plan sort of belies what we're hearing from you. I'm reading a note on the site plan too that says, minimal gentle grading to an approximately 360-foot elevation as needed to achieve suitable slopes for recreation fields. So,
Well, I mean, if you looked at an open area, there's not a lot of difference as far as elevation.
Yeah,
Like I said, we're not regrading, we're going by whatever the grade is. We're not trying to create a level field. We're just taking out the stumps. And will the grades change? Probably a little bit.
I appreciate that. You're not trying to create a regulation soccer field here by any means. But what's in writing on the site plan takes precedence over what's discussed verbally here. And so
Well, I'm not sure what was that again? Do you read that again?
it says here, minimum gentle grading will occur to the 360-foot elevation as needed to achieve suitable slopes for recreation fields.
I'm not sure what she means by that.
Me neither, but a grading plan would give us a black and white indication of exactly what she means by that.
I think the reality is that with the clearing and grubbing of the site, you're probably going to be bringing in soil.
Oh, we're not.
And then on top of that, you probably want to see what the soil type is and then determine if you need to bring in or cut away to bring in maybe say 4 inches of good, topsoil so that you can seed or whatever it is to get the established field that you're looking for. So I think it's going to be a lot of cutting and filling as opposed to cutting and regrading. But again, I could see where, taking the stumps out, you're going to be right around that 360 mark. You have a sort of a very low hump on it, showing it from 358 to 360. So I would agree with your initial assessment that you're not changing the topography, but once you cut all this stuff out, you're gonna have a lot of holes to fill. And then, get rid of all that, then decide if that soil is gonna be suitable for the grass that you want or whatever you're gonna put in the field.
Yeah, and that's why I asked about the Army Corps, because I think this is going to require some fill.
Yeah, I mean, just if you, continue on with that note, the man-made wetland or the wetlands have to be filled. And the one other thing that we're just checking is, I think, the note is that there's a drainage pipe that goes through the back, which we may have an easement there, which we'll just make sure. I mean, I don't think that grading over top of it is a big deal, but we'll have to make sure that the easement's shown on the plan. So the notes I have is we got to show the limits of clearing and acreage, a grading plan, potential stormwater, and show the easement. This is already. And do a tree council walkthrough to see. And I didn't know, like, if there's a significant amount of trees that are removed, if you're willing to plant like a line of trees along the entrance or something to offset some of the trees that you're reducing, if you have an area where you would like to replant on that property, or think about that. The driveway entrance along Balltown Road might be a good place for trees.
Well, we also use the front of the church for the open area for the church.
Mm-hmm.
We also use that for games, open fields. So.
Yeah, I'm not talking about putting a forest in front of. I was like, I'm sure you kind of enjoy that open view from Balltown Road. It's probably a good way to, advertise your church and invite people there. So, like, where could you kind of offset the trees that you're clearing without really impacting the sightlines to your church? Which is why I was thinking if you did like a line along your driveway,
Or even
something like that.
On the right-hand side of the driveway, it's just a grassy area that's not.
Yeah. Just places to think about replanting, because I think when we figure out this acreage, it will end up being significant clearing. If we do a walkthrough, there's probably a decent number of trees in there that the tree council would tag as trees of value, so we would want to see some kind of offset there.
Okay. So Laura, the items that you mentioned, I guess we could email the applicant.
Yeah.
So the open items, so you're clear, and you could talk to the surveyor or your engineer about the open items. And then schedule, we don't have to wait for the Army Corps to get back to you. We can schedule a tree council walk, and then we'll know, you can point out, or somebody can point out, what's going to be lost there, and whether there's any impact of what's being lost, and whether there's a recommendation to do any replantings based on, what's, so, we'll just take it the next step and keep working through it. We can get through it. Okay. All right. So we'll do that, but I think we do need a project lead. Mo Oster was the previous project lead on this, so we'd like to have somebody to be there when the tree council probably walks, and to help this project along. So if you don't have a volunteer tonight, you can email me or the planning office to get somebody on board to help out here, okay? And there's any timetable for hearing back, or did they give you a timetable, the Army Corps?
My understanding was when the application was made, and I'm not sure exactly when it was done, the Army Corps has 45 days to respond.
All right.
I haven't heard anything yet. I don't know exactly when the application was made.
Yeah, so even if it's a few weeks ago, it'll be
Well, it
soon.
could have been done in January.
Okay.
But at least that's when I asked him to do that. When it actually was made, I don't know.
Okay. So we're getting close to hearing from them. So we probably want to get this project going, because this is the time of the year, right? And when we get through all this and be able to get your project done. All right.
Yeah. I just want to reiterate that clearing plan is going to be important. Like, does it open a line of sight to the buildings in the little cul-de-sac behind Riley Way?
We'd have to see what the limits of clearing.
I guess
are. Sounds like it.
It sounds like it might, from just the verbal description.
Is there any markers in the field out there right now existing of the wetlands, or
There should be blue ribbons, yeah.
in the areas to be
Which would
clear?
the perimeter, I believe that the blue ribbons are the perimeter of the
All
wetland.
right. In the area to be cleared, does that delineate it also?
I don't think that's been,
So it'd be good to have a site walk just to try to understand what we got over there. It's hard from pictures,
Those two houses right there.
Yeah, in the northeastern corner of this parcel, you've got at least one backyard that might lose a buffer.
To the commercial property.
Northeastern or northwestern?
Northeast, northwestern, you do have a small strip of wetland that's depicted by the blue. So assuming that that remains undisturbed, there's some buffer there, but there's no wetland on the northeastern side.
This side here.
Yeah, I mean, that house right up there, right?
Yeah, so
Right.
maybe you guys could consider leaving a small vegetative buffer between the commercial property and the residential. So you're not clearing right up to their property line.
You're talking about putting the trees there. If we have
Or just leaving the trees, like leaving a certain amount of trees
Yeah, no.
between your property line and this
We intended,
home.
even before this wetland and buffer came into play, we always planned on leaving a buffer all the way around.
Okay, so that would show on your limits of clearing then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so that's got part of the confusion. It's hard to visualize what, the end game is once the areas to be cleared are cleared, what's left there. That's why we need a site walk would be helpful, But
Or just drawing it on a map.
Yeah, and drawing it, yeah. Yep. Which would help with the grading, so on and so forth. It'd be clearer. But go ahead.
I was just going to ask if Laura Clark, has the planning department received any comments or anything from the adjacent properties at this point?
No, but we haven't had a public hearing or any notification to the adjacent properties. So it's mostly just been discussed with the planning board and then just kind of briefly at the discussed at the planning department and then briefly with the planning board. You guys do have the option of calling for a public hearing on any site plan, but we haven't reached that stage on this project yet.
I mean, we will have to, right?
It's,
We should.
I mean, you guys, if if it's tenant change and the building's not changing and the grounds aren't changing, you don't typically call for a public hearing. But if you're concerned about sight lines and impacts to neighbors, then you would typically call for a public hearing.
The grounds are changing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it could be a significant change for the people around to at least put them on notice so they're aware.
Yeah, so my problem is I don't know it's a significant change because I don't see the area, it's not shown.
Okay.
Once it's shown, we may be comfortable when we do a site walk that it's not going to impact anybody, but we don't have enough information to make that determination right now.
So we could organize a site walk and get some better drawings for the next planning board meeting and then discuss calling for a public hearing then.
So there's a blue strip that corresponds to this dashed line on the map where the drainage pipe has settled. Does the Army Corps consider that wetland?
Yeah, that's included in their disturbance application, I think.
Okay. Well, we probably should have that noted and maybe it is.
I think it is.
It's tough to tell, but the map doesn't show that as being a reduction, as far as I can see.
Okay, yeah, so I agree with you. That's not actually marked as a reduction.
Yep.
We'll have to look at that permit. That is the area where I think the town has an easement.
Oh.
So I want to ask the engineering department. I sent the plan to him, but he's only had it for a couple days. But what goes through there? I think it may actually be a sewer line. But I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there standing water there? Or?
No, because I've talked to the engineering about this project a little bit, and I think you and I talked about this as well. You know how we have to take inflow and infiltration out of our sewer lines? I remember him saying that they found a place in the back of this church where there was a lot of water getting into our sewer line, and they fixed it, and they removed a lot of I from the system, which is why I think it might be a sewer line, but I have to wait for the engineering department on that.
Okay.
So when the plan here is done, is the PVC pipe going to be completely buried, or is it still going to be showing on the surface?
Yeah, I'll check with the engineer what they need to make sure that, that any stormwater stuff's still flowing or any, whatever they need, to make sure that the utilities are functioning. Yeah. I don't know what they need.
Laura, I remember from a previous meeting that we talked about a drain in the middle of the parking lot that I think you could see a white square in the parking lot, and they talked about a drain there going into this pipeline, I believe.
Yeah. It's labeled as stormwater, so that may just be what it is.
Mhm.
We'll have the engineering department comment on that by the next meeting.
All right, yeah, we need some more information, to work with the applicant here, and, I'm confident we'll get there, we'll get through it all. I know that you'd like to keep expenses to a minimum, I'm sure, like everybody does, but there's certain things, once we get to delineate and understand what we got, we'll know what the requirements are and how far we have to go, with paperwork, with the SWIP and so on and so forth. So we got some open items. Laura will document, planning office will document those items. We'll make sure you get a copy of it for the next meeting. And we'll get you on the agenda if you're ready to continue talking about that, All right. You have any questions for us? All right. Yeah, like I said, we'll get there. We always do. All right. Any questions for the applicant at this point? And Laura, you got the open items. You all set?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, thank you for coming in tonight. Appreciate it. All right. And under reports, we'll move to reports, and one item under reports, and anything else that Laura may have, but talk about the historic code adoption.
Yes. So I emailed you guys the proposal that the town board called for a public hearing on. There's still plenty of time to comment. So I know Clark had a couple of comments, which we'll pass on to Elena. I don't think I heard anything specifically from any of you guys yet, but
No.
feel free to call or email them to me. And then I think Dennis is also working with Gloria, who came from David or Daisy or somebody Chris, who has some experience with code. So they're going to do their test on it and then give those comments to Elena as well.
Okay, when is the public hearing next week?
The public hearing would be like the 22nd.
Next week.
Next week. Yeah, next
All right.
Tuesday. Yeah.
Yep. No, I've reviewed it. We've had several rounds of input. I did have just a couple comments looking at it again. And I think Clark may have had something similar, but like the 30 days. So somebody makes application to demolish, it goes to the Historic Preservation Committee, and they have 30 days to render like a decision or ask for more time, right?
Mhm.
So you're looking at 30 days. And there's a 10-day something in there also. And then if they need to have more time because they need additional information and so on, they can request another 30 days, right? If I understand it correctly. So it looks like, you're looking at like 60 days, 60 plus days from a determination made by the building inspector when it gets passed over to the Historic Preservation Committee. So I just, speaking out loud, we have to make sure that, somebody comes in with something that, obviously moves along. Because if somebody's looking to build or fix or whatever they're looking to do, obviously this is going to slow them down when they make application. Not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying that everybody has to be aware of that in order to keep it moving along, because there's some time delays that will be injected as a result of the historic preservation. So everybody needs to be aware of that.
Yeah. The timelines actually changed from the one that you guys looked at before. So the one that you guys looked at before, I think there was a 30-day time period for the historical committee to review, and then it was a 90-day time period to negotiate with the applicant on whether or not to take down the building. So in this one, the time frame's actually shortened, but there's an ability for the historical commission to say no.
Right.
And then the applicant has a certain right to appeal to the town board, who would make the final decision if they would uphold the
Right.
historic committee's decision on that. So the timeline's actually shorter than the last one that we looked at.
Right. But in that case, it could be as much as I got like 70 days, 60 to 70 days just to get through that. If everybody utilizes the maximum time,
Right. I mean, I would hope that,
Yeah.
the power would only be exercised kind of under
Yeah.
very
I
extreme.
think that's just a public awareness thing to make
Yeah.
sure people understand that, right? And then the other thing is staffing. I think we still have several boards that are looking for to be fully utilized, right? For members of the public to join boards, right? So obviously this is another board, which I'm all in favor of. Don't take it wrong, but we need another 4 members. I know in order, besides the town historian, to be able to staff this board also. So it's just, again, realize that we need, people to staff all these boards, and hopefully there's enough people, people interested out there to do that. And I don't know if Clark might have had this comment too. It was a demolition, but the historic code also talks about historically significant areas, right? So that's not really demolition, because it might be development. So we might want to look at the word demolition and add the word development in there also, because there may not be something to demolish, like a structure, but it may be a historically significant area of town where we don't want to have it developed or, change as a result. So we might want to consider the word development somewhere in there.
Okay.
All right.
I had concern over the appeal process. The time frame for appeal seems to have been shortened, or at least it seems short to me. And I'm also concerned that it's from the date of the decision rather than when the decision is conveyed to the property owner. Unless I misread it.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean,
the decision is made is one thing, but there needs to be notification to the property owner.
yeah, I agree with that. If that's not clear in the code, we can clean that up. Like if you just want to email me and Elena that, so if that would be a good comment.
Okay, thank you.
It'll be, yeah, date of notification, right?
Yeah, just something, yeah. It may be implicit, that kind of an Elena thing, but certainly if we can tighten the language up so that it's, fairly understood there. Yeah.
I think, the boards, I believe we all support it. It's something we've been, providing comments on for some time. And we appreciate the current historical committee's work on this, and Dr. Brennan's work is greatly appreciated. And Elena, of course, thank you for helping out here.
We're pretty much there, right?
Yeah, we have a public hearing. It'll be interesting to see what we hear from the public when they get a first look at it. Any other comments on the historic code?
So remind me again, how does the announcement for this one go out? Is it townwide, just in the in the newspapers?
For the town board public hearings, I believe they post, in town hall in certain places, and it's noticed in the newspaper.
And on the website.
And on the website, and also I believe, this isn't a legal requirement, but there was an article in the Gazette about it.
I do hope the public takes notice, because so many property owners will be covered by this, given that the age of the building, anything over 49 years old, that really is going to encompass a large part of the town immediately.
So I know that we had a discussion over
Mhm.
how to define a historical building, and the 49 years comes from New York State. But I mean, my one thought about that is there's a certain review process to any building that needs demolition. We do asbestos checks, utilities have to be turned off. You're not able to walk into town hall and get a demolition permit turned around in a day. If you have a fairly standard run-of-the-mill home that needs demolition, and it just needs a double check from the historical committee, that shouldn't add a whole big process to a demolition permit. Like, that's not going to be the thing that's going to slow anybody down. It's only going to be when you're really triggering something, I think, historically significant, that this process would kick in. Because a demolition is actually a fairly decent thing to undertake on a single family home.
And
Normally, if you have a tragedy like a significant fire, that process can be done rather quickly. At least it has been.
Well, and this code does provide for those emergency situations for it to be taken down at the discretion of the building inspector. So that's not overridden in any way.
Do you have any anecdotal feedback from developers who were paying attention to what's going on here or not?
I haven't received any feedback except from you guys and our boards on the historic code.
Yeah, and I think one of the first things that the commission would be tasked with would be putting together a compendium of properties and sites that would, go into some sort of document that the town hall would have. And that would be the first thing that would be cross-referenced if there was a demolition permit that was filed for. That way we can say, this house was built in 1923. Is it old or is it historical? I mean, there's a difference. And if somebody is truly focused on taking down a perfectly good house in a very nice neighborhood that happens to be, pre-World War II to build a brand new house. We don't see that often or hardly at all, I think, in town. The neighborhoods are established enough that we really haven't come across that. That is referenced in the plan that possible redevelopment could happen, and we try to take a look at that every 10 years. But I would think that compendium would be the first stop for the board and the planning department to make that recommendation back to the applicant to say, hey, by the way, we've identified this property as historically relevant for the following reasons.
I mean, but I think that's going to end up, as time passes on, that's going to end up being the likely use case, right? An owner of a property sells it, some developer buys the property, wants to do a new site, right? A new subdivision, new site, and like we've seen in the past.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely how we've seen it in the past. I don't know what our redevelopment pressures would be going forward, to David's point, but I think typically we do see that there's some historic properties on remaining large properties, and it becomes more beneficial, like for somebody from outside of our town to come in, scoop it up, knock the historical structure down, and then maximize the profit. And, we do what we can to be fair to our community and our neighborhoods, but we have no ability to say you can't take that building down. And that's really a shame, because some of these buildings have a lot of meaning and they create a fabric in our community, and we should be allowed to say, hold on, work around it, something like that,
Well, there's going to be the problems, like, I know of one historic home in town. I don't think anybody would argue that it has historic value, but gee, there's also the powder post problem. And the exterminators will not warranty extinction with their work on that, because it just takes over the house.
Well, nobody's right is being removed to show all of that data to the historic committee. I mean, they would make their case, and
Yeah.
but it couldn't be, I want to take this down because it could be, I want to take this down because I make more money that way. But that may not be the greatest case ever to make to a historical committee. But if the case is, I've done all of this, insect work, and it's not safe to live in, and there's no saving it, then there's no saving it. But at least it's gone through the process. It's documented. We had that conversation with them, and we tried. But like, you're not going to be able to say no truly there's data to support that there's no way to keep that structure up.
I'm not arguing against it. I'm just saying I can foresee a number of problems, including that kind of thing.
Well,
I can think of one area of town that I regard as historic. I'm not sure the homeowners do, and certainly developer is not likely to. And in that regard, I kind of think this could be very valuable, because I'd like to see that area of town preserved in the small residential units it has, rather than being knocked down and combined and McMansions built.
and redeveloped.
Yeah, I mean, my line of
But-
question was just around awareness of the public and everyone from the public, including the
Yeah.
developer.
Being allowed to talk about it. Yeah, for sure.
They get curious.
It's a good comment about awareness, because there's no action going to be taken at the town board that night. It's strictly just a public hearing.
Yeah.
So typically, if there's an action, there'll be a resolution, and the historic code would be included in the agenda package for the town board. So in this case, that may not be included, because usually the public notice is strictly just the public notice.
Oh yeah, there's no action scheduled on this.
So I'm saying we need to get the document on the website somehow so the public can see it prior to the meeting.
It's there.
It's there now?
It's been there for a week and a half, maybe
Is it?
2 weeks.
Okay, I
Yeah,
didn't know.
it's there. Yep. So you just go to the town board website under news and announcements, the same way that the planning board puts our public hearings on the website, and the full code is there
The
for
full
people
code's
to
there,
read.
okay, that's what I
Mhm.
want to make sure, all right, because I didn't know that, so I'm going to make sure
The
the
full
public.
code that's in front of us. right?
Yep.
The
This
historical
exact code is
Right.
up on the website. Mhm.
It's not buried in the larger code.
Good, that's good.
It's not what?
Two separate, so we have the
Right.
code section, but then this is under news and announcements, so
Perfect.
it's just the historic
Good.
code that's on the,
All right, and if that
Website
way
in that
somebody
section.
calls, you can tell them it's there, just,
Mhm.
take a look at it, good.
And actually, where it is on the website is put in the newspaper. So you can, if you get the notification by the newspaper, you can also navigate to the website.
There's a
and
link
click on
to it?
Yeah.
Okay,
mhm.
all right, perfect. All right, anything else?
Will owners of property placed on the town register of historic places receive any kind of notice to that effect?
So there's a couple things really. I mean, the code provides for people to get a plaque, and that would be something that they're asking us for, and then we would have a budget and give them. But as far as like, I mean, the 1982 historic register that we have referenced multiple times, like, I think that's probably the starting point that we would upgrade. I don't know that the code provides that, if we're making a list of historic structures, that it mandates people be notified, but we certainly could notify them as we were doing the updates.
Sounds like that would be important, right? In case they disagree at some point in the future, to be upfront with that. Again, publish it once the committee has a recommendation for properties to be included or areas of the town to be included. It should be posted so that people know about it,
Yes, except them being listed on this historic registrar, it doesn't restrict their property in any way, really. I mean, anything over 50 years would go to the code. So, I mean, I'm happy always to notify people, but I don't necessarily think that if, they come up with a working list, or we still use the 1982 list, that we need to send everybody a letter that says.
Yeah, I
you're
don't
on the
say we can send
1982.
anybody a letter, but there's a the committee now has a section available on the town website, right? So maybe the list just gets posted in,
Yeah.
under a pull-down tab there, that's all.
Yeah, that makes sense. Once they get it up,
Yep. And so people can go look if they so desire.
see, yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
Maybe a notice in the paper or something that people who are wondering, they could call and find out, for people who don't use the internet.
Hmm.
Because we do have a number of citizens who do not.
We do.
The doors are open here. They can come upstairs, and
Yeah.
planning board or planning department's great to work with.
Yep. Just want to make sure we use all forms of communication, make sure people are informed. It's always the best, right? Okay. Anything else under reports? Laurie, Clark, Laura? No? All right, we'll move on to commission business. Mr. DiArpino, what do you got for us tonight?
I'm going to be meeting with Ms. Gagan from the Inniskuna Animal Hospital to put together that milestone timeline. Hopefully before I have a draft of something ready to review with the planning department before the next meeting, and then to establish something so that she can come back to ask for that 2-year extension at some point before the deadline occurs in the middle of April.
Great. Thanks. Anything else?
That's it.
Mr. McPartlin?
Nothing from me.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Khan?
Nothing from the chairman.
Ms. Gold?
Nothing, thank you.
And Mr. Laflamme?
No, sir.
And Ms. Shenfield?
Nothing for me.
All right. Let's see, I really don't have anything. I just want to mention for the public, we all have our tablets and I'm using my phone. It's not that we're, doing personal work, or we're focused on the meeting because of COVID. I know we've talked about this before. We've had like a paperwork reduction. There's no more packages being delivered to everybody, just for public information. It's a cost savings thing. So if you see us on our tablets, phones, or computers, it's just that all that information is uploaded to the website, and we're utilizing that information in our meeting also. So that's all a good thing. And it's good for the planning, and it's good for cost savings for the town. So, all right, motion to adjourn.
So move.
I was looking at Mr. Laflamme, moved by Mr. Laflamme and seconded by Mr. DiArpino. All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none opposed, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Chairman Wall.